Oh, well, here we are again, huh? Hey, everybody, welcome back to JT Channel, and welcome to yet another discussion that is basically the same headline that we do. I feel like this discussion comes up a lot, and that is, did AEW go too far? Now, that is not a criticism of the company. I know that as soon as I say that, people are going to start going, oh, well, if they went too far, then they should burn to the ground and explode and get sent to Mars. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying that is the discussion here. And once again, even though I have quite possibly the smallest voice when it comes to pro wrestling, I still have a voice. I still love pro wrestling. And when things like this happen and the internet explodes with conversations about it, I feel like I should talk about it. Now, I know I'm a day late. Well, I'm technically 2 days late. It happened on Wednesday, but everybody's been talking about it since. But I was busy doing other things, putting out other videos, getting other things figured out. But now I do feel like I have taken the time to really think about this and form a proper opinion. I read a few opinions online, not a ton, because the internet wrestling community are the worst people on planet Earth. But it goes back to the Swerve Strickland, Hangman Adam Page, unsanctioned steel cage match, which I enjoyed thoroughly. Like, pardon me, I had a good time because it was really unexpected. You never knew what they were going to do next. Now, when that match happened, I had to come on here and have the same conversation. Did AEW go too far? And I said, no, I don't think they did. That cage match was meant to be over the top and violent and stuff because that was the feud. The whole feud was like that. I mean, Hangman Page burned down Swerve Strickland's childhood home or whatever it was. So, did it go too far? No. Did it make me a little uncomfortable? Yeah, the needle spot really caught me, but other than that, I think since then it's aged okay. I think going back and watching it, you're like, oh, well, it's Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland. What'd you expect? And now we find ourselves in the same predicament, where now we're asking, did AEW go too far with this Jon Moxley-Adam Copeland match? Now, if you don't know what happened, and unfortunately, a lot of you are going to know exactly what happened because the thumbnail of the video is going to show it. So, spoilers, I guess. But after Adam Copeland and Jon Moxley's world title match at Revolution was kind of a stinker, which is hard for me to say because I love both of them so much. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Jon Moxley's basically my favorite wrestler right now. And that's like in the world, by the way, just period. But it was true. It didn't really work when you had certain other matches on the card. The Toni Storm, Mariah May, Hollywood Ending. The Will Ospreay, Kyle Fletcher, Steel Cage. Those are two matches that definitely could have main evented, especially Toni and Mariah. Whereas Moxley and Adam, it just didn't really live up to the expectations of the rest of the show. And people were kind of like, ugh, that was a crappy end to like the pay-per-view as a whole. Not that the match was bad, but comparatively it fell short. And I believe that Tony Khan and John and Adam themselves understood and heard this, and they had a rematch this past weekend. It was a street fight. It did not main event, which I think was also reflective of the backlash of the pay-per-view, because they did main event there, and it was a regular match, I suppose, and it just kind of didn't work. On this episode of Dynamite, it wasn't the main event, and it was a street fight, and I think it worked really well. Now, the rest of it was pretty much what you expected, I believe, where, you know, there's tables and chairs and Kenny the Kendo Stick. Oops, I stole somebody's something. Shout outs to Simon Miller, as always. And you had all the Death Riders were interfering, and the patriarchy interfered, and blah, 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 blah. But the reason we're here is because, oh, God, I feel like it was last year. I'm pretty sure it was last year. Edge, Adam Copeland introduced Spike, which is like, it's like a 2x4, I suppose. It doesn't really look like a 2x4. Basically, it's a piece of wood, and it has nails out of it. Very reminiscent of Abyss's old weapon, Janice. If you used to watch TNA back in the day, that was a 2x4 with nails like coming out of it. And that's what Spike was. And, you know, very, very creative name, Adam. Spike. Anyway, he's had this thing forever, and there was always going to be some kind of payoff. At least that's what most people expected. Janice had a few moments in TNA. Some people compared it to Drew McIntyre's sword, but the sword was never going to be used as an actual weapon. Whereas this is AEW, you can see Spike, I don't know, being bounced off somebody's head or something, but it's probably like gimmick nails and stuff like that. This is what we all thought beforehand. Like maybe the one Adam was swinging at nobody had actual nails coming out of it, but maybe when the payoff came around, it would be a little different. Sorry, I deal with stuff. Well, we were all very, very, very wrong. Because not only did he actually hit Jon Moxley in like the stomach with it, but at one point it was laying on the ground flat with all the nails sticking up, and Adam Copeland suplexed Jon Moxley onto it, and the nails got stuck in Jon Moxley's skin. So there's all you need to know, pretty much, is that the nails got stuck, and when Jon Moxley popped up from the move, Wheeler Yuta took out Adam Copeland, and then there's a good, 30, 40 seconds, maybe longer, I'm not actually sure how long it took, where Wheeler Yuta and the referee are trying to get nails, a nail board, out of Jon Moxley's back, and his skin twists, and it's really hard to watch. If you're squeamish, me even describing this is probably making you stop the video altogether. I don't blame you. I do not blame you, because I had a hard time with that. And that's why this time it's a bigger discussion of, did AEW go too far? But just like last time, I think the answer is the same. It's up to you. How do you feel about it? If you think AEW went too far, then it wasn't for you, and maybe you should be a little more careful what you watch. And that right there is making a lot of people on the internet mad. And that's because that's how I feel. I'll tell you right now, was it for me? Yes. Yes, it was for me. I've said this once. I've said it 1,000 times. I have watched legitimate deathmatch wrestling. If you've never watched deathmatch wrestling, then you don't know what you're talking about, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying deathmatch wrestling is for everybody, because it absolutely fucking is not. Okay, just don't think that you could handle deathmatch wrestling just because you handled the Jon Moxley spot. But because I watched that stuff, gross out, I guess, like deathmatch wrestling, I don't know what else to call it. Even if I'm squeamish about it, I watched this and I was like, no fucking way. And I couldn't look. I was like, oh, no, is it over yet? Is it over yet? Like I'm watching Annabelle for the first time. And I've went back and rewatched it a lot. My daughter's been playing with my dog a lot lately, so if you hear a lot of loud laughing, that's what that is. But I went back and watched it, and after watching it a couple of times, I realized that I was fine with it. There are people that, as soon as it happened, went online and started screaming and hollering as loud as they could on their keyboards. And that was that, you know? But I've gone back and watched it, and I'll admit, let me backtrack just a hair. I couldn't watch Dynamite live for one reason or another, and I saw this stuff on social media. But I went out of my way to go watch the match, and I loved the match. And yes, if I had watched that spot unknowingly, I probably would have jumped and done this. You know, the whole, I can't watch, but I'm definitely going to watch. And it's just, it all rotates back. I know it seemed like I'm losing my point, but I'm not. There's no other way to put it. It's not up to you. You are not running All Elite Wrestling. You are not Jon Moxley. You are not Adam Copeland. You are not Tony Khan. You are not whoever helped run the story. They came up with that spot. And Jon Moxley came up through the deathmatch ranks. So all he's doing in All Elite Wrestling, is trying to go back to, I guess, his origins. And he's done this a lot, you know. Remember an unsanctioned match between him and Kenny Omega? I go back and watch that all the time. I'm pretty sure that suplex off of the stage onto that, like, spiderweb barbed wire, pretty sure that was real barbed wire. And back then, all anyone could do was go, oh my God. But now that AEW's been established and been around for a while, every time something like this happens, the internet explodes. And now that I have a YouTube channel and I've established that I'm a huge wrestling fan, I feel like I have to talk about these things. Now, as far as the overreactions, I do want to say that I've gotten all of my hollering out, that I understand. You know, being suplexed on real nails is probably not a smart thing to do. But I'm sure Jon Moxley went back and got looked at and took care of himself, and maybe he'll even take some time off. I doubt that. He's Jon freaking Moxley. But I understand where you're coming from. That to you, maybe pro wrestling is, maybe you're more used to like the Attitude Era style of wrestling, where it was like trash cans and chair shots and stuff like that. Now, the Attitude Era was still worse, and I'll never, ever change my mind on that. Because nails to the back is still better than an unprotected chair shot to the skull. But maybe that's what you preferred, so you don't want to see ultra-violent pro wrestling spots in your mainstream wrestling. And I understand that, but maybe tone it down a bit. Like, I didn't see these reactions personally. I just saw people saying, oh, it's ruining wrestling. It's one spot. If you let one spot in one match ruin wrestling, hi dog, for you, that's on you. That's not on All Elite Wrestling. Okay, I love pro wrestling. I watch Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, Collision, TNA, NXT. I try to watch all of it as much as I can. I'm not going to let one spot on one show on 1 week ruin pro wrestling for me forever. So saying it's ruining pro wrestling is just not true. It ruined the moment for you, maybe the match for you. Maybe in your head you're like, oh, pro wrestling doesn't need this. But that doesn't mean it ruined pro wrestling for everybody else. And go listen to the crowd. Like, they were like shocked, but they were into it. They knew what Jon Moxley was capable of. I will admit, again, using an actual board with nails on it isn't a mainstream wrestling thing we see very often. And while I do have my opinions on the people that I've mentioned so far, the worst bunch are the ones out there saying, well, what does Warner Brothers think? Why the fuck do you care what Warner Brothers thinks? If you are a adult, male or female, working a 9-to-5 job, and you come home and you live your life and you have a family or whatever, and you're watching Game of Thrones or Vampire Diaries or whatever bullshit's on TV these days, you do not matter to Warner Brothers. I'm not trying to be rude, but if you're not working for Warner Brothers Discovery, why do you care? I know I seem like I'm pretty upset about this, but it's frustrating. Because I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that, but I've heard about it. I've watched other reactions, and people are saying that there are reactions out there, people that are like, well, there goes their sponsors. Unless you're a sponsor, why do you care? If you didn't like the match, if it was not for you, that's fine. Say whatever you want online. But here's what's not going to happen. Warner Brothers Discovery is not going to send an agent to your house and ask how specifically you, John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, felt about one spot in one match. And if you go, well, I didn't like it very much, they're going to tear AEW off TV. AEW isn't going to die, okay? People consistently think that stuff like this is going to kill the company, but it never, ever does, because that's what we expect from AEW. And you're also not going to get everything you want. I mean, I wanted CM Punk to win the Royal Rumble 2 years in a row. Did he? No. Am I mad about it? No. They always had a plan. That's a different story, but I'm just saying. I'm very passionate about pro wrestling, if you can tell. And stuff like this gets me riled up, because even if I didn't like it, and I told you, I was shocked and squeamish, I'm like, ugh, but I didn't hate it. I liked the ingenuity of how to use Spike. I liked the creative direction the match went. Of course, I don't like the fact that my favorite wrestler had nails stuck in his back. But I enjoyed the moment. I was like, wow, who ever thought we would have seen that? And something that I've heard a couple of times, and this is my favorite point of all, is that AEW always gives you exactly what you want. Or not what you want. Hold on. People are going to hear that statement and start screaming at me. They give you what the match title says. Exactly what it says on the screen. When you hit start match on 2K25, which I don't have, but that's the newest game, you want to see a street fight. If you see 2K25 say street fight, you're going to play and you're going to use weapons and go crazy. And knowing some of you out there, now that it's intergender wrestling, some of you are probably out there just beating up Nia Jax with steel steps and chairs and stuff like that, which if you're doing that, you're a disgusting bastard. I'm sorry, you are. But when it comes to it, when you hear the word street fight, hardcore, no holds barred, whatever phrasing you want to come up with, Music City Street Fight, that's one of my favorites, you are expecting to see violence. And AEW has established for 6 years that they are not afraid to push the envelope further than anyone else has on mainstream television for ages. I mean, going back to the Swerve Strickland, Hangman Adam Page thing, that happened on pay-per-view. So I get it. It's a little shocking to see it on mainstream, but now you know. The next time there's any sort of no rules, street fight, hardcore BS on Dynamite or Collision, you know to go, okay, I have no idea what's going to happen here. And you can go back ages and ages and ages, 6 years, and see this kind of stuff. Who here remembers Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa in an unsanctioned match on TV, on weekly television? I do. It is still my favorite women's match ever. The only match that's ever come close is Toni Storm versus Mariah May in the Hollywood ending, where they had a Taipei death match in the middle of their match. AEW has been doing this for a long time. So, if you're watching a street fight in AEW, your expectations should be through the roof. You never know what they're going to do. I feel like I've seen it all now, because even with my deathmatch wrestling watching, I don't recall seeing anything like that. Now, of course, I don't watch a ton of deathmatch wrestling. It does get hard to watch. But, for me, that was just a shock moment. That's like, okay, AEW once again raised the bar. And now, there's a chance, and I cannot believe I'm saying it, there's a chance that we may get back to Hangman and Swerve. If that happens, then all bets are off. All bets are off. You all are going to be talking about Jon Moxley's spot with Spike like it was watching Care Bears on a Thursday afternoon. I don't know what that means, but I said it and it's too late. So that's it, I guess. I know I kind of rambled for a second there. I thought this video was going to be like 10, 12 minutes, but I had to ramble, and I kind of went off a little bit because this is getting old. That's my main takeaway, is that this is getting old. Y'all are getting old. It's getting boring. And before you go, oh, so is that kind of wrestling? No, it isn't. The people in the audience are having a great time when they watch this kind of stuff. I'm a fan of it. There's plenty of people that do like it. Plus, there was a snowstorm, and a bunch of wrestlers couldn't make it. Jon Moxley couldn't fly, so he drove 11 hours, took that spot anyway, and probably had to drive 11, 12 hours home. Some of you won't drive an hour to work, and you're pissy about Jon Moxley taking a Spike spot when he drove 11 hours to wrestle a world title match. I'm just saying. I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to end this video with a bit of huge, massive, giant news. I have my first sponsor. Now, they are not an official sponsor of the channel necessarily, but I do have a sponsor now. So from this video forward, all of my videos are going to end with me talking about the sponsor, and the same guys that I've seen a couple other channels that have like constant sponsors. That's what this is. This is a official sponsorship, and I am working with them. I don't have the product as of yet. This is brand new, but when I do get the product, I'll be showcasing it here on the channel. It is Dubby Energy. That's D-U-B-B-Y Energy, and you can head to their website, which is dubbyenergy.gg, and enter my code, which is JT Channel, all caps, all together, all one big ass word, for 30% off. They are an energy drink, like I said. They have the tubs, so you can like put as much as you want in your little shaker bottles. They have shaker bottles. They have plenty of flavors. As I have said, I have not personally tried the product, but I am very, very excited to try it very, very soon. So again, you head over to Dubby Energy, that's D-U-B-B-Y energy.gg, and enter my code JT Channel, all caps, all one word, for 30% off your order. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'm sure we'll talk about this again in a few months when AEW has two wrestlers, I don't know, throw knives at each other. But until then, this is JT Channel. I am JT, and I will see you in the next one.